Welcome to the HP Online Teaching Assistant, an initiative of HP Education. Today we will explain how to create educational content with Genially. In this educational session, we will use Genially to create highly interactive presentations with great educational value in just a few minutes. Students will be able to interact with this presentation and forget about those boring presentations. Today's objectives are getting to know the interface of Genially and how to move through it. Second, get to know the features that Genially offers. Incorporate multimedia and interactive elements into presentations and learn about interactive presentations and gamification elements. Before starting in the tool, I'd like you to know a bit more about Genially. So, it is a tool for the creation of digital resources. What can we do with it? We can design infographics, animations, interactive resources, and presentations for our virtual course. What advantages are there when creating any educational resource with Genially? It lets us create interactive and visual presentations in a few minutes. Forget about boring presentations. We'll use the pre-designed templates and change the content to fit our needs. We can add all the multimedia resources we want to make it more visually appealing. It also has a Creative Commons library of resources suitable for teachers, which doesn't interfere with any kind of license. Now let's move on to practice. In Google, we search for Genially.com. When you go to the website, it will ask you to register, just like for any other tool. The registration is completely free. So we log in if we already have an account created or register. When registering, you can do so with the Google account or with Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or with an Office 365 account. I have already registered and saved my credentials. Let's go directly to it. In Genially, it opens directly in the creations I've made or that I've started to use. But we'll be creating a new one so I can explain how it functions. We click on Create Genially, and a window appears with everything we can create. That is to say, interactive presentation, report, learning experience, gamification, interactive image, 2 types of infographics, both horizontal and vertical, guides, video presentations, personal branding, which is like your resume, because this tool is not only dedicated to the field of education, but also to professions. And then we have social and blank creation. So let's create a presentation from scratch. Here we load all the templates. What should we take into account? Well, as you can see, some have stars and some don't. Those that have a star are premium, and here in the top bar, if you click on free, those that we can edit for free with our account will appear. There are many, and we can use all these templates for our interactive presentation. Here you see the template for a presentation that I'll show you later on, the human body presentation. For now, let's create a blank one. As you can see, we have a bar located on the left and at the top. I'll explain each of the features we can use in our interactive presentation. In this left bar, we have the text tool with various options, whether a title or paragraphs, including many fonts that we can use depending on our taste when designing, or whatever content we want to include in our presentation. We just click on the one we want, and it will appear in the presentation, ready to edit. In Image, we can upload pictures that we have already selected from our computer. Or, if on the contrary, we don't have them selected or organized, or haven't done a previous search, we can search them by URL. Or, Genially also lets us use a series of images already stored in their image library. We can use cutouts, those that are PNG, where you won't see any background behind it. And here we have 4. But if we click on Show More, we get a lot more of them. Then we have Pixabay, which is a library of images associated with Genially, also Creative Commons. As always, if we click Show More, all of those available will appear. They also have GIFs, and depending on what we want to search for, if we write education, for example, we get all those related to our search. Then we have the Resources button. Here, we'll find those formats which we can make interactive or animate. We have the icons, which as always, if we click Show More, a lot more will appear. Then we have shapes. We'll be able to add graphs and charts, lines and arrows, pre-designed illustrations in Genially, scenes and maps. I like this a lot for social sciences or geography to put a map of the continent or the country we are working with and add small interactive elements for students to learn. Next, we have the interactive elements. With these, we can also create some interactivity. We can find buttons with embedded text, markers, or if we want to include our social media, numbers, and letters. In Smart Blocks, we can insert a series of data, tables, and graphics within our presentation. We have diagrams or a collage of images. In the latter, we can replace the images with one from Genially resources, if we have the URL, or upload one from our computer. Then we have the Insert button. We can insert both audio and video as well as others. Do we want to upload the audio from our computer? No, we can't. Why? Because it's a premium feature. We can record directly by clicking here or copying the link of any of these tools, which I suppose you already know, like Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, etc. In this same section, we have video, where we can embed a series of videos from external sources such as YouTube or Vimeo. Then we'll be able to insert other types of embedded content. Any other multimedia resource we know can be embedded here, and it will preview on our page. It also supports other sources, such as those you see here, like Twitter, Facebook, etc. Then, in the background, it is important to mention that this is made up of two layers. We have the canvas, which is this rectangular part, and then we have the base, which is the background behind that canvas. We will be able to customize both the canvas and the base with the same options. So I'll only explain the canvas since the base is exactly the same. On the canvas, we can remove the background. We'll be able to upload images that we have already selected from our computer or that we have found with some URL. We can give it a solid color. I'll click so you see where it's being placed. We're going to have a library. I'd like to highlight here that by clicking on Show More, we get more results. For example, a desert. But the ones that I like the most, that create a little more excitement in these presentations, are the animated ones. As you can see, they have a kind of meteorite. I, for one, could select this, and as you can see, it moves and interacts all the time. This is another example. There are so many to choose from, depending on what you like or the curriculum content you are working with. Then, base would be exactly the same. And finally, the pages, that is, the slides of our presentation. Here, we can format and edit them as we want. We can add a new one, or we can delete or duplicate an existing one. So, for example, I don't like this one, so I'll delete it. As for the top bar, we have options for editing what we can select on our slide. If I select this text, I would find Cut, Copy, Paste, Duplicate, Layers, Position, Transparency, the color we want to give this text. I'll put it in pink. Then we have the font type. There are a lot already pre-designed, just pick one. Then we have font size, bold, italic. All this you know if you've used the typical tools of Word, PowerPoint, etc. Now, what is this that shows up in all the resources we can use inside Genially? It doesn't matter if it's text, an image, a resource, an interactive element, all of them. By clicking on it, two circles will always appear here. One is for interactivity and the other for animation. If we click on the one that has the hand, it will allow us to introduce a type of interactivity, such as Tooltip, if we want to include a little content. It is not recommended if it is a lot, as for this we have the window option. We also have the option Go to Page or include a link. To create an idea in Tooltip, I can write anything. I can insert an image, a link, a video. In this case, I would have to search previously before pasting the link. In Window, it's exactly the same. It will allow us to change it to small, medium, or large, depending on everything we have written inside it. Now, Go to Page lets me go to a specific slide in my presentation. And finally, a link, which we may want to share with students to help them better understand the content. The other small circle that's like a meteorite is to set a specific time for an animation to start, the direction, and effect. This is all that Genially has. There's not much else. As you can see up here, we have the typical undo buttons, which is the usual Ctrl+Z, or redo. It automatically saves all the changes we make, so we don't have to wait to save. Here, we can add a title. This is if we want to upgrade to Premium to add collaborators. We can add another teacher to make this a collaborative, interactive presentation. Just write the email address, send the invite, and automatically they will get an email saying, "Louisa wants you to collaborate on this interactive presentation." Previewing how it's looking is very important to make the necessary adjustments. We go back to Edit. Then, finally, this little wheel will allow us to change the display options if we want to share the Genially. If not, it will be private. Privacy if we want others to reuse our Genially or not. The designer mode is much more advanced to configure the parameters of the elements and keyboard shortcuts, many of which you already know, such as cut equals Ctrl+X, copy equals Ctrl+C, etc. So now that you know how each of the Genially elements is used, let's move on to a Genially that I've created before. I created it from the template I showed you at the beginning. I simply had to change the content depending on what I'm going to do in my class, which in this case is about the human body. As you can see, I wanted to make the background of the canvas interactive, to make the presentation a little more appealing and grab the attention of the students from the onset. As you can see, a text, another text, and here in the heart, I've included a toolkit and a bounce effect. In the index, we have what we are going to see: the lungs, the heart, the stomach, the intestines. And as you can see, if I click on any of these, I've made it interactive as well as animated. In this slide, as you can see here, I have added buttons. Inside this button, I added interactivity and animation. In this case, in interactivity, I added a new window with a new video explaining the respiratory system. And in animation, I put a fade-in effect. Now I'm going to show you how the student would visualize the final Genially. As you can see, it is totally interactive. We have made the heart animated. The student can go through all of the parts of this presentation and may be surprised at discovering each new thing, or select this option, Show Interactive Elements. And then the index, which, as you can see, expands when passing through each of the texts. When clicked, it sends us directly to the slide that expands the information, in this case, to the stomach. Here, we also have interactivity, where you will find a brief explanation with a photo. And we could continue like this throughout the presentation. As you can see, everything is interactive. Finally, I always like to end my classes with a phrase, which in this case is, "A sound body is the product of a sound mind," by George Bernard Shaw. And that's it. But now you might ask yourself, I've already done it, I've already saved it, I have everything perfect, but how do I share it with my students? So that's what we'll look at next. Those are my Genially, so when you go over each of them, these options appear. Edit, and above we find To Present, To Download, this option is Premium, Add Collaborators, which we have already looked at, and Share, which is the option we now need. We will be able to share it via link. Just copy the link and paste it where the students have access. Using Insert, input an embedded code. If we have a blog with a web page, copying this directly would appear in our blog. Send via email, through social media networks, and in others is what I like the most, because if we work with virtual learning environments, be it via Google in Google Classroom or with Microsoft in Microsoft Teams, we can directly link them and join these virtual classes. So, for example, Google Classroom. I would click on Google Classroom and it would ask me to choose a class. Then I would select an action, create assignment, ask question, make an announcement like, "Guys, I created a new Genially. "This is a presentation I want you to see," or "Create material," and it automatically uploads. We also mentioned that we would look at how to gamify these interactive presentations. The truth is, I'm very comfortable that these interactive presentations already have some pre-designed templates because that way I can avoid design issues, which can be a bit of a headache. Here, we click on Free to see all of the free templates. So we have games like Memory or a Pac-Man quiz, where, depending on how the students progress through the game, they will be learning and discovering new things. There is also the Game of the Goose. Everything can be edited. Just click More to use this template and you can start editing it. Finally, we have the famous breakouts, or as we call them, escape rooms. These are just templates. We would change the images, maybe the background, and use other types of content that we would like to see with our students. Here we have the escape room. We would just change it, modify it. If we don't want to use this introduction, we use another. We can use the characters we want. For example, they have to save us in the school. Whatever you want, it all depends on the content you have to work with and your creativity. Thank you for watching this video, offered by HP Online Teaching Assistant, an initiative of HP Education.